It is my pleasure and honor to introduce my friend and colleague, William Meader, who travels the world with purpose, skill, wisdom, and dignity, teaching and spreading the knowledge of the ageless wisdom wherever there is a need. And I sometimes, these days, as I kind of pull back a little, I see William out there everywhere, omnipresence, giving people clearly the essential ageless wisdom in a way that can really, really help them, spreading the word as it should be spread, and very happy about that. So without further ado, William, you're speaking on the Cristos this morning. William Meader.
Thank you, everybody. It's great to be here again. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay. Yes, my topic today is entitled Cristos and the Solarized Mind. And what I'd like to do today is I'd like to talk to you about the intimate relationship between the Christ principle, the soul of humanity, and the solar angel that is enshrouding you at this very moment. And also where we are as a humanity and the incredible period we now live in. Let me first say a couple things about something recently that's happened to me. Last week I had the great privilege of being at Findhorn in Scotland during an event called The Gathering Into the Christ Consciousness. And it was a great celebration around the Easter theme. And it was magnificent, and it was an experience of really rededicating oneself to the idea that all of this work, in the end, is about bringing the Christ more fully into the life, into our individual lives, into the group, and into humanity as a whole. And we can think about that from the perspective of the Christ principle, or we can think about that in perspective of the Christ himself, and we can also think about it as it pertains to the Christ in you. You see, one of the most important things to realize about the soul, the causal body, and therefore the solar angel, is that your causal body, which is given to you by the solar angel, it is a great representative of the Christ principle. It is indeed the Christ in you. It is the Christ in you. And this is one of the greatest gifts we could possibly have. When I use the term solarized mind, I'm really speaking of the Christ in you. I'm speaking of the mind nature in its higher aspect. You know, yesterday we had this wonderful talk that Kathy did, and she highlighted the notion that the mind is the slayer of the real. And then she gave us some wonderful quotes to look at. And one of the things I'd like to highlight about that is it is true that the mind is the slayer of the real, but as her quotes depicted it, it must always be remembered we're talking about the lower mind that is the slayer of the real. Because you see, the higher mind, the solarized mind, is the great revealer of the real. It's the greatest gift we have inside us. And so I want to talk a little bit about, first, I'd like to talk about the notion of what is this causal body? What is this gift from the solar angel? And I'd like to talk about it in a larger context by talking about the angelic kingdom itself, and then narrow it down to the solar angelic life for you, so you have a feel for this. And I also want to have you feel how it is that you can understand that solar angel in the presence of your life at this very moment in this room. The solar angel is, as you've been hearing now for hours, you've been hearing about different ways of understanding the incredible intelligence of this great being that overshadows you. And as Michael pointed out today, it's hierarchical, and the root of the solar angel is way, way beyond just the mental plane. It's in fact, the higher mental plane is the lowest extension of the solar angel. And I like to use a simple way of looking at this angelic life as a metaphor. It's as if I were to play the role of the solar angel, and I as a solar angel, for reasons that are mysterious, but I as a solar angel am directed by the greater life to enshroud and help a human being. It's like it's like that solar angel is giving a part of itself to create a sheath of substance deep inside you, a sheath that makes it possible for you to discover your wisdom. And the causal body is actually a part of another entity. It's a part of an angelic life. It's really not yours at all. It's being held for you by this solar angelic life. And the way I like to metaphorically think of it is as if I were that life and here's that human being, it's like a fingertip. My fingertip is a solar angel that's enshrouding that little human being. And I'm giving to that little human being my fingertip, which is to say I'm giving to that little human being the intelligence of the substance in that fingertip. But the solar angel is far, far bigger, more massive than that fingertip. But nonetheless, that solar angel dedicates that fingertip for 18 million years. Just that fact alone is remarkable. And that causal body that is now that fingertip, that causal body is something that when you woke up, or actually when you individualized 18 million years ago, it was there but unrealized. And for thousands of lives, that solar angel has kept that finger there for you. And you have been growing as a human being, emerging out of the animal kingdom slowly. You know, I think when individualization first happened, I suspect that yes, we got a causal body, but I bet we grunted a lot. I bet the animal was still very strong in us. But the point is that slowly, we start to benefit from the intelligence of that substance that's enshrouding us. But there comes a point on the long journey, which we call the awakening, where the individual first wakes up to that causal body. A flashing forth occurs, and the beginning of the probationary path occurs. You discover something inside you. You discover something really sacred, almost godlike, almost Christ-like. It's the first time in the long evolution of human consciousness where the individual wakes up to the wisdom and the light and love of the causal body, although it's fleeting. But at that moment, the individual has, for the first time, recognized the spark of divinity within themselves, which is the first time that the sense of God, the sense of the afterlife, the spiritual dimension of life goes beyond just mere faith. There's now for the first time an experience. But what is that experience? It's an experience of the causal body, which is to say, and it's an experience of the solar angel for the first time. And life from that point on will never, ever be the same. Never. Because now there's become, even if it's fleeting, it's the first conscious glimpse of this great angelic life within you. It's often misunderstood at first. The born-again Christian is often the person that is a good example of this, who has the awakening take place, recognizing the solar angel inside, but confuses it and says, Jesus saved me. Jesus saved me. They call it their testimonial. Jesus saved me. Jesus came to me. From the esoteric perspective, that's not what happened. What happened is they had their first conscious realization of their own causal body, the solar angel, which by definition is Christ-like. You see, the solar angel is a great, well, we've been hearing about it. The solar angel is, its root is the heart of the sun, the solar logos, the heart of the sun. The love principle of divinity itself is where the solar angel is rooted from. So it's an understandable misunderstanding. It's expected that at the first glimpse of the solar angel, there would be a misperception of it, and it would be culturally defined. In a Judeo-Christian environment, it'll be defined as Jesus. In Hinduism, it might be Krishna. it'll be culturally defined based because all the personality has to go with is it's been taught in its cultural context of what that must be. But eventually you start becoming more intimate with this inner thing. And you start to, what you really are doing is you're discovering slowly, very slowly, you're discovering that you are the divinity you seek. You are the divinity you seek. And in a way, the whole path is a process of coming to that. So the solar angel actually, as I look at it, and this is my own way of looking at it, the solar angel is something that gives to us three fundamental things. And I want you to think about these things as it pertains to your life experience. The first thing is this: that causal body is not just a sheath of substance, intelligent substance, but it's a container that holds the wisdom that you have garnered over thousands and thousands of lives. And so that causal body is expanding with more and more lofty thought forms that are, it's earned wisdom, because wisdom is always earned. So whenever you have a wise moment, whenever you have a thought that you realize, this is a piece of my wisdom, what are you really experiencing at that moment? You're actually experiencing a wise thought form that you developed perhaps in a previous life. You're recapturing it out of the causal body, and the substance of that thought form, because all thoughts are actually assemblages of thought, of substance, mental substance, but that substance is actually coming from the causal body. So think of the causal body as a repository of acquired wisdom that the solar angel is holding for you, and giving you that repository, but it's also the bindery that is assembling the books of wisdom that you have earned. In other words, the substance used in the assembly of the wisdom that you have earned, that substance also comes from the intelligent substance of the solar angel. In other words, you have a wise thought. In a certain sense, is it your thought? Well, yes and no. In the ultimate sense, you're the perceiver, yes, but the thought itself, its intelligence itself, is not of you. It's not of you. You've earned it, you know how to assemble it, but it's really not of you. It's really interesting when you think about just the angelic kingdom as a whole, because the angelic kingdom is the great kingdom of intelligent substance. It's the great mother line in creation. And every layer of the mother is a layer of intelligent substance. You've seen, many people have been showing the constitution of man, the 7 planes. All of those planes are planes of intelligent angelic substance. And every vehicle that you are using, your physical, your emotional, your mental, your causal, even beyond that, the intuitive level, all of those are instruments of intelligent angelic substance. I do a seminar sometimes that's just on the angelic kingdom, and I always introduce that seminar by saying this, that the angelic kingdom is so close to us, it is as if we were all fish who do not know what water is. That's how close to us it is. Right now. Right now, for instance, there's actually only one thing inside you that isn't angelic. Only one thing. And that's the deepest place in you. It's the place of pure, unfettered beingness. It's the place of the monad. It's the place of isness. It's the presence. But beyond that, everything that you experience right now in this room is a production that's arising through your relationship with layers of angelic life. You're sitting right now in a chair. You're sensing the texture of that chair just in the sitting of it. The experience of that sensation itself is an intelligence that's angelic. If I break my leg, it heals itself. That's an intelligence that is angelic. If I have a feeling experience, lofty feeling or base feeling, that's the assemblage of emotional intelligence coming from another category of angelic, like we call these lunar angels, but that's an angelic intelligence that is creating the experience of a feeling within your emotional body. And what is the intelligence? Let's say the feeling is love, or it's aspiration. So what's the intelligence? Aspiration itself is the intelligence, but it's not of you. It's experienced by you, but it's not of you. In this case, it's an angelic life that is providing you the sheath that we call your emotional body. That's a lunar angel. Nonetheless, it's angelic. The same is true with the mental body, the lower mental body. That too is angelic life. But beyond that, we get into the solar angelic realm. So what's the difference between a solar angelic entity and a lunar angelic entity? The answer is this. A solar angelic entity is providing you a deep, deep layer of substance, and this is what we call the causal body, is providing you a deep layer of intelligent substance, but that substance is of such a high order that it ultimately, in the long run, will provide you the experience of two fundamental things, actually three fundamental things. One is, it provides you the experience of Christ-like love, as I mentioned earlier. The causal body is a great, great agent of the Christ principle. And you know when that part of when the solar angel is giving you that quality, because you feel at times that lofty kind of love. In many ways, what we just saw with Heidi's presentation, so much of what she was trying to describe to us was that kind of lofty kind of love, which is, it's more impersonal. It's the kind of impersonal love that is, though it's more impersonal, it's more broadly inclusive. That's what Christ is. The highest kind of love is the most impersonal, and yet the most broadly inclusive. So when you have those moments, whenever you have those moments, and we all do at times, anytime you have that moment, guess what? The solar angel just gave you a helping hand. The solar angel just contributed to the shaping of that perception at that very moment. Another thing that the solar angel does for you, and it's been working to develop this all along, is that the substance of that causal body that it's giving to you, that substance is of such a rarefied high development that it gives you, the indwelling self, the capacity to realize yourself. You see, the substance of the causal body is lofty enough for you to understand and discover your individuality and to rise above mere animal instinct. It's a substance that has the ability for you to learn ever so slowly, learn how to look inside, learn how to introspect. Somebody said yesterday, I think it was about the idea of reflective consciousness. Reflective consciousness is the looking inside consciousness. And to start to become much more aware of awareness. To become aware of awareness is very much an impulse that is only generated from the substance of the causal body, because that substance, that angelic substance, is of such a lofty nature that that kind of perception is made possible. That's the big difference. And finally, it's the causal body, because it's an extension from the greater life, it's that part of you that senses something beyond you, that connects you to the larger whole. When you go in deep inside yourself in meditation, and you feel yourself widening into a sense of a greater whole, and we all have that feeling, when you've experienced that, you're experiencing an awareness that is given to you by the solar angel to put you on rapport with the greater life that you're a cell within. Because in the end, that's really the bigger truth, is each of us are a mere cell within a greater life. So for a long time, for thousands of lives, what is that causal body doing? It's really emphasizing the importance of developing your individuality, to be able to say I-ness, with the distortions that arise from that too, I might add. One of the distortions is called ahamkara, the tendency to overly self-reference. But nonetheless, that causal body, that solar angel is giving you the capacity to say, I am this, or I am that. But then when you step onto the path, because you've had the first conscious recognition of the causal body, you wake up. That's the process by which now the causal body is going to give you its, you might say, its final gift. Now that you've developed your sense of I-ness, it's now time to widen you out and reconnect you to the truth that you are a cell within a greater life. And it's the transition from I-ness to us-ness. That's the transition that is called the path. That's the path. The path is a process of decentralizing, but the causal body, the solar angel, has spent most of its time trying to centralize you, trying to have you understand, who are you anyway? Only to finally get you there and say, okay, you've got that down, now let's learn how to let it go. Let it go, but not let it go in the sense of I no longer exist, but let it go in the sense that, you know, it's like, it's as if you're both centralizing and decentralizing at the same time. You know, the Tibetan, he's got these amazing phenomena. You can read a sentence, he'll say, know where you stand on the path. Then he'll say in the next sentence, take your eyes off yourself. Okay? Take your eyes off yourself. Well, but it's a paradoxical truth. Yes, know where you stand on the path. Know who you are. You've been working on that for a long time, but now it's widening you into the larger whole. And that's what the solar angelic life is about. It widens you into the ashram. That's a larger whole. Beyond that, into the planetary logos. Beyond that, into the solar logoic system. So the whole path, as given to us by the causal body, by the solar angel, is a transitional path from I-ness to us-ness. So as it is said that a master doesn't lose their sense of individuality, or identity, I should say, but it becomes so insignificant. It's as if it becomes a little tool that they have in their tool belt that can be brought forward as needed, when needed. It is said that, to give you an analogy, individuality to a master is by analogy equivalent to animal instinct to a human being. By analogy. You get that? Get that? The animal instinct is still in you. I mean, if you look deep enough, it's probably not too far. Just kind of look, okay? I offer that to you. But the same kind of, that's like a tool. But the same is with a master who has risen above all of that. A master still has their individuality as given to them by their causal body, but now it's just a tool, as needed, in service to the greater whole. Okay, so those are some things I want you to think about as you think about this, because right now, you're thinking, you're feeling, you're sensing, you're pondering, everything that I'm saying to you is, there's nothing but angelic life instantly shaping thought forms and sensations right now. You see? So the solar angel is right here with you now. And all the lunar angels are there too. All of the phenomena, every piece of phenomena that you are experiencing is because of angelic intelligence hierarchically playing out through you. Because you are, in the ultimate sense, pure, unfettered beingness. You are the ultimate observer. Now I want to, so having given you that understanding, now how do we take that understanding and look at the world today? Because the deeper truth that's going on for us today is that humanity as a whole is approaching the first initiation. And friends, I got to tell you, there's nothing more important in the world right now than that reality, that unfolding reality. The first initiation, interestingly, is called the birth of the Christ within the heart, so it might have something to do with Christ, you see. And what's happening in the world today, well, first, back up for a minute. understand that humanity as a whole is constitutionally just the same as a human being. It has a soul. It has a personality. And just like you and I have times when the soul is trying to impress itself and impinge more of its influence into the personality, so too there are times when the soul of humanity seeks to do the same thing. It's trying to evolve. It's trying to create more soul-personality fusion. But just as you and I, there are moments when there are pressures from above, the causal body, the solar angel, is providing pressure to more infuse into the personality, and that causes the personality to get all wobbly, to get fearful, to go into crisis. That's exactly what happens in the larger scale. When the soul of humanity is trying to impress itself into the personality of humanity, the first tendencies will be that we'll have an increase in crisis. And that's what we're seeing in the world today. In a very real way, everything that's happening, whether it's the environmental crisis, the economic crisis, the crisis in Africa with starvation, wars, all of these things, from a certain perspective, from perhaps the widest perspective, is a reaction to greater light trying to penetrate into the lower part of our collectiveness. Crisis is the forerunner of every initiation. Crisis is the prelude to every initiation. In some of the literature, it's called the burning ground experience. The burning ground experience, think about it in your own life. You've had to walk through some burning grounds, and you've become a different person at the other end, right? Or maybe it's just me, I don't know. But the point is, in the human experience, because the human kingdom is ruled by the fourth ray, which is called the ray of harmony through conflict. By the way, notice it's not called harmony and conflict. That's really important. It's not called harmony and conflict, it's harmony through conflict. We are in the one kingdom of nature, because we're the fourth kingdom of nature, where that pattern of consciousness called fourth ray, harmony through conflict, is the predominant underlying note of our evolutionary tendency. And the conflicts that we see in the outer world, the crisis and so forth in the outer world, is just a manifestation of the fact that the human kingdom must evolve through crisis. It's in the fabric of life at this level that's the way it's how it happens. But unlike we have crisis, we have wars, we've got starvation, and all of those, I would call those horizontal crises. Those horizontal crises are actually just horizontal renditions of the one crisis, the one issue, the one conflict that is most universal, and that's a vertical crisis. It's the crisis between our God nature and our animal nature, between the divinity that you ultimately are becoming and the thing you have left behind or trying to leave behind. It's really between the future and the past. And that all conflicts in the world are just the outer reflection of the most inner fundamental conflict woven into the fabric of the human condition. The conflict between as Kyle Gibran would say, the conflict between the God within us and the pygmy in the mist. The pygmy in the mist. So the crisis that's going on in the world today is great, because you see what happens is when more love, when more unity is trying to impress itself into a personality, individually or collectively, the first reactions of that is that shadow elements contained within that personality become fearful and rise to the surface in defiance. So that's why we see such problems. We see the worst of politics these days. In the last few years, we've seen the worst of religion. We've seen the worst of leaders. We've seen the worst of business practices. These are just shadow elements that rise to the surface. And that's great. That's fantastic. That's why I'm so happy about the crisis, because, it sounds weird, but the truth is, how can you change anything unless you first see it? And the soul of humanity is pressing its greater light and it's forcing it to rise so we can see it, so we can do something about it. So that's the time we're living in, and we're walking across these burning ground, these charcoals right now. I don't think we're in the hottest period yet, but I think the year 2012 is actually a marker that is symbolic, and it's a marker that even the Mayans had some sense that this general period in time would be a major crisis of change. So why do I bring all of this up? Because the soul of humanity is a great Christ principle. And you and I have a solar angel that's a great Christ principle. And if you really want to think about what is the work to do in the world today, it's really about being an agent on behalf of the soul of humanity. And that soul needs agents within the world of politics, science, the arts, education, all of the social systems, which in themselves are entities having a soul and a personality. But all of those social systems are places where more light is trying to come in. And you as a servant, you as a solarized mind, have the capacity to be an agent on behalf of that greater soul at this critical, critical time in human history. So the more that, let's put it this way, the more that you and I can align ourselves with that higher part of us, the more that we can sense that acquired wisdom that we have earned over thousands of lives, the more that we can feel that higher, more lofty, more expansive, more impersonal kind of love. That doesn't take away from the value of personal love, that's absolutely sacred too, but I'm talking about that broader kind of love here. And the more we can become a creative agent on behalf of the wisdom we sense and the needs of humanity, the more you're acting on behalf of the soul of humanity. Simply put, to the extent that you can hold your consciousness in your solarized mind place, the more you can sense the needs of the greater whole, the needs of the soul of humanity, and work with it. When you drop, and we all do, the path of discipleship is about a wave pattern where you drop down and you fall back into your personality. When you drop, at that moment, at that time, your perceptual mechanism that the lunar angels are providing you become allies to the personality of humanity. You and I are just a reflection of a greater pattern, a greater duality. And by the way, the soul of humanity is a great solar angelic life as well. I mean, a massive, massive solar. It's more than just the sum total of all of our solar angels. It has a synergy to it. It's greater than, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. So when it is said that we live in interesting times, that is so true. We live in interesting times. The question is, can we, collectively, rise to the occasion? How much are we willing to dedicate our lives to service to that greater whole, the soul of humanity? And I invite all of us to rededicate ourselves in that way. And your service can be individual, it can be as a couple, or it can be as a group. It doesn't matter. What matters is bring the best of you into the world. What matters is just bring the most highest kind of love you can, the most kind of wisdom you can, and remember this, that as you are inspired by your causal body to serve in this way, remember that it's not about bigness. It's not about how much or how far that outreach. It's not about how many people you touch. A simple rule of thumb is this. The soul is governed by, or the soul measures itself based upon qualitative considerations. The personality is quantitative. The personality is always saying how much. The soul is always saying how well. How well. So as you think about your spiritual purpose, as it is subtly trying to come through from above, from the causal body, from the solar angel, just recognize that as a litmus test for you. When you're thinking about size. You know, I do a lot of private counseling with people as well. And a lot of people they'll say to me, I sense my soul's purpose and I know it's going to be big. Well, in as polite a manner as I can, I say, you definitely have a soul purpose, but the part of you that is really focusing on the bigness, just realize that's your personality speaking at that moment. It's not about big, it's about doing it well. Just keep bringing the best of you into every situation. The world needs us. The world needs you. The world needs us individually and collectively. So I invite us to all bring that solar mind into the fullness of your life expression, and let's help humanity take that first initiation. Okay? Thank you very much.